So you get to choose, do you want, your food to be your medicine, or do you want me to write a prescription? And I tell them the easiest thing I can do for you is write a prescription and walk out this room, but that's not really going to help you.
Hey, good morning, Well to Leave family. How you guys doing today? Hey, this is your host, Bobby Davis here. Folks, listen, I appreciate you all joining me this morning. We are privileged today, guys, to have in our studio audience Dr. Amanda Atkins. Dr. Atkins, how you doing this morning?
I am doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, and I cannot wait to learn more about what you do and your story, because I know that your story kind of aligns a little bit with some of the things that I've experienced myself. And I'm sure our audience is going to be well informed today as well as inspired. So, listen, I understand that you live out on the West Coast, right?
That is correct. I'm out here in California.
Nice, nice. What's the weather like out in California today?
Well, today is not too nice outside. It's kind of overcast and dreary. I'm like, where's my sunshine?
I know, right? Well, we got some sunshine out. I was telling you offline that I had went to the gym this morning. It was 56 degrees, and now it's about 80 something, you know, in the afternoon. So it's about 80 something degrees. So, you know, take the jacket with you in the morning, short sleeves in the afternoon. So we rock with it. But listen, Dr. Amanda, I am really excited to dive into this discussion with you today. I know that you do a lot of things in the wellness space. I know that you have your own journey that you transition through, and I'm really interested to hear more about how you inspire women in particular to take care of themselves and to overcome some of the challenges that they may be dealing with as far as their health is concerned. But before we get down to that, you got to tell us more about yourself. Who is Dr. Amanda, and how did you arrive at this place in life?
I like to tell people, oh, this is decades of worth of stories here.
I hear you.
I like to start back into why I decided to become a physician. So I always like to give a shout out to my sixth grade teacher, Mr. Ivy, who taught us about how the blood flows through the body.
Mm,
Before the sixth grade, I wanted to be a math teacher. I love math. I still love math. And I was like, I'm just going to be a math teacher. That's simple. There's no one in my family that's in medicine. So I was like, I didn't know anything about that at the time. But when he showed us how the blood flowed through the body, and it wasn't just like he was up there lecturing, and this was back in like the 80s, dating myself, but that's okay. But he put this thing on the floor to where you saw the heart and then the blood vessels, and the students were the way the blood flowed. So we would walk in this pattern, and to do something besides sit at our desk and listen to him talk was, great. And that just fascinated me. I don't know why, but that just fascinated me and thinking like the human body is so wonderful. I want to learn more about this.
mm,
And so, I actually went to the library, because I'm like a book nerd, still love reading books. And because, there was no such thing as Google or the World Wide Web at the time that was
I
accessible
know,
like
right?
that. So, and I looked up, what would it be, what would it be like to be a doctor, specifically a cardiologist at the time, because that's the word we learned about, a heart doctor. And so I looked that up and, I was like, so I told my grandfather, I was like, "Oh, I think I wanna, be a heart doctor." And he was like, "Oh, well, I go to a heart doctor. Let me introduce you to him." And so I got to meet his heart doctor, and I was just like, "Oh, okay." And he was like, "Yeah, you should do it. You should do it." And so from then on, I was like, "Okay, yes, I wanna be a physician." So I went on, and here I am to be a physician after 6th grade, 12 years old, and
Wow.
decades later here. So that's my position story, because people always think that, people want to be doctors for the title or the money, but it was for me it was just the human body is just amazing how it works.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Well, that's That's amazing. And thank God for Mr. Ivy, the 6th grade, teacher, right?
Right?
Because you could have very well been doing something in the math realm, and I know that you've been doing a great work in this medical space, and it's amazing how, God sends us people oftentimes that are divine in nature that can help point us in our calling, and I'm always intrigued to hear those stories about how you started. So I really appreciate you taking time to share that. Now, your doctor, you've been working in this medical space for some time. Now, what I'd like to find out, Dr. Amanda, if you don't mind, if you can share with us the the personal story, perhaps, of some of the challenges that you experienced yourself. Maybe tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes. So my actual journey for health, I tell people started back when I was in high school. So I've already know I wanted to become a doctor. And then in high school, not really necessarily knowing how the body worked besides the way the blood flows through the body. We learn
Right.
stuff later. But again, back in the 90s, we had to do what they called a presidential physical fitness test. Okay. And at that time, you had to actually weigh yourself. So they wanted to know your weight, your BMI, all that kind of stuff. And so as a like 14-year-old girl at the time, I weighed 199 pounds as a teenager. And that was just like very eye opening for me because I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I cannot let two be the first number of my weight. I know that
Wow.
diabetes is in my family. I know high blood pressure is in my family. I know heart disease is in my family, cancer, all sorts of things. And I was like, what am I going to do with myself? And so I just started exercising. I was like, I don't know what to do. I just know I can move my body more. Cause like I said, I just like to read. I'm like the sitting somewhere in the corner with a book, reading something, going in my own little imagination world.
Yeah.
So I just started exercising, and so I was, able to lose some weight because I was like, I got to get moving, get my body active, and then the big thing, like the weight was the big thing, but then at the age of 16, I became a vegetarian. And again, I grew up in Indiana in the 90s, vegetarianism was not something that was done, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm in
Right.
California now, so you would think I always grew up in California to be a vegetarian at 16. That is not the case at all. And even further twist to that story is that at the time, my father was a meat delivery truck driver. So we had
Get out
access
of
to
here.
get, yes, hot dogs, bologna, sausage,
Oh,
bacon.
man.
Like that's what the main things that we're eating. And then at 16, an African American family telling your parents, you're not going to eat the food that they're bringing in the house. I'm going to do something else, right? So just imagine how that was going, right? And I'm the
I
youngest
know,
of
right?
3 in the household, right? So they're like, "Okay, yeah, we'll see how that goes and how long that lasts." So I tell people it wasn't really a plan. It was just like I remember, looking in the cabinets like, "What am I going to eat that day?" And I was like, "Oh gosh, I'm just going to grab these peas and the corn out the can." And I was like, "I'm just gonna see how long I can go without eating meat." Like, that was my mentality at the time. I remember the last piece of meat I ate was some chicken from this cheerleading banquet that was horrible. So that's another story, but but it was just like, "Okay, so I'm not gonna eat meat." The people that I was growing up with at the time, they're still amazed when I tell them this story that they're like, "Oh my gosh, you haven't eaten meat since that time," because they remember like me going to McDonald's and trying to figure out
Yeah, yeah,
something like
yeah.
a Big Mac with no meat and all that kind of stuff. Like you had to make up stuff, at that time in Indiana if you were not going to eat meat because everything came with meat. The vegetables even
Yep.
had meat in there. So, but that's just how, like I said, God works. Like, okay, you physician, okay, you're gonna become a vegetarian, with your father having meat all over, and then just to go through med school, residency, and even out into a training, out of training into actually attending hood, that I still went all that time, no meat. I called myself the junk food vegetarian, where my favorite foods were like Doritos and a Coca Cola or C2 at the
Get out of
time.
here.
Yeah, so I did all the things. So when people say I can't do this, I can't do that, so I was like, I went through all these different transitions going through, but still kept that I'm not eating meat mentality, and even to this day. And then actually when I was actually practicing in medicine, maybe like my second or third year, out of residency, one of my patients actually told me about Dr. Joel Furman, who is really big in nutrition. And he told me about Eat to Live book. And of course, I'm a book lover, so I got the book. I looked at that and just fascinated by that. And then later on, like Googling things, like what I was doing, and actually found lifestyle medicine years later, which I'm now board certified in lifestyle medicine. I'm an internal medicine physician originally by training, but then actually learning more about lifestyle medicine, I was like, okay, this is what I was meant to do. Like if you look at my story, I'm like just lining up to be
Yeah,
here in lifestyle medicine to actually learn about how lifestyle makes a big impact on our health and well-being overall. It's just,
right.
wonderful. I was like, "I know I was called to do this," because I'm like, who else becomes a vegetarian when their dad brings home hot dogs? And again,
I
at the
know.
time, they
So
didn't say anything.
yeah, yeah, I'm still stuck at that part, to be honest. I mean, that story so fascinates me, Dr. Amanda, because, I was raised in the South, and my father during the time, I mean, he farmed, and we had, like, we had, like, pigs and chickens and all that stuff, and I remember eating all of that stuff, right? So I can't even imagine your dad. He has all these meats, right? Like meats galore. He's bringing this stuff home, and
Right.
you just have this idea to say, "Nah, I don't want any more hot dogs. I don't want any more, sausages or whatever the case." And I'm just stuck. I mean, did they say anything to you about this? Did they like say, "Hey, what do you? Why are you tripping out? What's going on with you? Why are you not eating?"
That I don't remember them asking that why, they're just like, "Well, I don't know what you're gonna eat." I just remember like that, like, "You figure it out what you're gonna do, I'm not gonna make these other things," type thing. So
Yeah,
I don't remember that they ever said, "That doesn't even make sense, why are you not doing it? You know, why are you not eating this?" It was just
right.
I don't remember that conversation. If it was, like, in the passing, they was just like, "I don't know what you're gonna eat, so figure it out," type thing.
Hey, look, that sounds exactly like my mom used to say. She said, "Look, ain't nothing else gonna be cooked in this kitchen. You gonna eat what we got
Right.
here. So, hey, go hungry if that's what you want, but you gonna eat this or not. It's
Yes,
up to
yes.
you." And that's interesting that you pull that piece out because I'm glad you shared the backdrop because it's important for us to know how you started on this journey because I see now that you're in this lifestyle part of practicing, I guess, medicine. Perhaps you can give us more detail around that. But I wanted to make sure that we at least kind of got some backdrop. So I appreciate you going over that part with us. Now, tell us the difference when you started into. So now you come out of medical school. Did you go into like your own private practice? Maybe tell us from that point kind of how you transition into what you're doing now.
Okay, so out of residency, I went into a multi-specialty private practice, which it was in Tennessee. So I was in primary care, internal medicine. So we had all different specialties within this practice. So it was like at that time it was like 60 something physicians within this practice. So it still was a private practice. And I think that's how I was able to then learn from my own patient about Dr. Joe Furman and then going on to do like nutrition courses and then actually people asking what else can I do besides a medication that really like propelled me to go on to learn more about lifestyle. Like I was like, well, at the time I didn't have the training in lifestyle medicine. I was like, well, I don't know exactly because we were trained to diagnose and give you pills, but this is what I've done, and they're like, most people when they saw me because I was already, had lost all the weight and they're like, there's no way you know what's going on. And so then I tell them the story or I, show them a picture from when I was back in high school or something like that. And they're like, that is not you. Oh my goodness. And so they were
Wow.
more apt to listen to what I had to say about making lifestyle changes because they know I had been through it myself and not just this doctor that's sitting on the other side of the table saying, you need to do this to be healthy, not understanding the struggle behind it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's powerful. And I wanted to to mention this part, your focus now is on helping women who are overweight, like you were back in the day, to help them overcome their weight issues and to kind of help them overcome or maybe ward off some of the chronic diseases that kind of parallel to being overweight. What drove that as your primary focus? Was it your own personal experience?
So that was a big part of it, but then I was having, as an African American female, having a lot of African American women come to see me as their physician and actually seeing their struggle and them like knowing that they did not want to be on medications. They did not want this to be their final story either. And so I was like, okay, well, let me really hone in on them. And so I always ask, like, well, do you not help men? I'm like, well, of course I still help men,
Yeah.
but because it was me that was in that same body that actually understands. And then also my grandmothers really inspired me, very God-fearing women that both still had chronic illnesses that I really focus on, like the heart disease and the diabetes, because they both had that. And that just, it seems like I'm helping my grandmothers by helping these women also, since I did not have the knowledge at the time when they were still alive.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Now, can you tell us, perhaps in layman's terms, so we talked about the lifestyle medicine piece that you're in now. And we also talked about the beginning when you got into practicing medicine that you, I guess, you would call that traditional medicine, practicing traditional medicine. Tell us the difference between those two, because those terms, I don't want to take for granted that the folks out there understand or may understand what we're talking about. Maybe give us some clarity on the difference between the two.
Okay, so internal medicine, I'll start there, like is for adults. So if you think of like your general practitioner, your family doctor, that I just saw people that were 18 and older and prescribe medications or help them whatever way they needed, but not surgical wise. Okay. So just think like you're going in for your physical, you're going in to get your blood pressure check, anything like that. That's internal medicine. Lifestyle medicine is just a specialty. It's still in traditional medicine because now it's recognized as a specialty, whether it's coming off of family medicine, residency, internal medicine. You can be like any board certified physician and still then go on to have a fellowship or a certification with lifestyle medicine. So it's still part of, I say, the traditional medicine, because I always tell people, point this out, that even in like medical studies, they also say like when it's related to like high blood pressure, diabetes, said with lifestyle plus this medication. But they always leave out like that lifestyle part, like nobody like for us as internal medicine docs, we skipped over that and like, okay, we assume you tried that and then just gonna give you the medication. But lifestyle medicine is really honing in on the lifestyle, and there's 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine that we focus on, which is a plant predominant nutrition or diet, exercise as medicine, sleep, restorative sleep, stress reduction, social connections, and getting rid of toxic substances like tobacco use, excess alcohol, drug use, things of that nature. So if you look at that, that's all aspects of our health and well-being, that we really focus on, because if any of those things are off, that does affect how your body is going to react and how you can actually either reverse or prevent or unfortunately be diagnosed with these chronic illnesses. So that's why I really like to focus on that initial nature too, that if you work on these changes of these 6 different pillars, and when people hear that, they're like, they feel overwhelmed, they got to do everything at one time. That's not the case. Usually we work on one thing at a time. My big thing, of course, is nutrition, because I say that if we change our diet, what we're actually putting in our mouth, the other things make a difference, but that makes the biggest difference. The biggest bang for your buck usually is when people change their nutrition. And again, I tell people that's what I've experienced in myself and what they actually shown in studies too, that, once you change your nutrition, almost everything else changes.
I'm glad to hear also, Dr. Amanda, that you can help men too. Okay. I know your focus is with women, but you can help men. And the reason why I mention that is because, I too struggled with weight. I think I shared a little bit about that with you, that I struggled with obesity for decades. And the amazing thing about what you're doing right now, it is the primary way for you to not only lose weight, but to reclaim your health, your good health, because obesity, we obviously know leads to a lot of issues. I had a lot of health issues. The you know, I guess, and I want to maybe segue into the next question. I struggle personally with my weight because of two things. Because of stress, because I was building a business, climbing the success ladder, and I neglected my health. And the second thing was my nutrition was shot. It just didn't have I mean, I was just eating fast food for the most part. And then over time, the weight just kind of it just got out of hand, and it got out of hand. And then it's like the check engine light on in the car. So the car's been running bad. You're not putting the oil in there. You're not putting the
Mhm,
best gas in there. All of a sudden, these lights are coming on, and my lights start coming on when I would go to my primary care physician, like you
mhm,
mentioned, and she would say, "Hey, what are you doing? You
mhm.
know, your numbers are all out of whack.
Yeah.
You need meds for this, that, and a third." And I would hear the same thing every single year. You need to take the medication and you need to make some lifestyle changes or change, what you're eating and all this stuff.
Mhm,
But I didn't listen. For years, I didn't listen. There was a coming to myself moment that I had that
mhm.
changed my path. But I bring that up because I wanted to ask you about when someone comes to see you, how do you help them to transition into this lifestyle? Because 'Cause they're on meds like I was, but how do you help them to transition into this new way of living, this lifestyle change where you're working from that angle as opposed to just depending on the meds?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that because it's no magic wand. I would always like tease my patients when they would come in. They're like, "I want this change. I want it now." I'm like, "I left my magic wand at home. I'm sorry, we cannot make that change immediately." Oh, so they would joke with me like, "Where did you bring the magic wand today?" But anyway,
No
so
magic wand.
So usually I just try to kind of get to know them, assess like where they are in their journey. Cause like you said, it takes something that makes that like a line in the sand, like I'm not crossing this. Because no matter how much I can like lecture and preach to them and all that kind of stuff, like you said, you heard the same thing for years, but you're not going to change anything, right? And so I usually try to see, what are their actual like goals in life? Like what do they want to do? So like women, most of the women I was working with were either high career women or mothers, something like that. And so either they wanted to, be around for their children, take better care of their children, or they had a lot of
Yeah,
work that they wanted to do. And the fact that I was a physician and then now also a mom, they actually say, okay, well, how do you do it? So, just trying to look at, what are the benefits of actually making the changes versus the medications? Because, as
I
doctors,
love
all
it.
we hear
I love
is
it.
this medication made me feel X, Y, and Z. I don't like taking this medicine because it's doing this, or y'all just want to make money off of me because of taking me these medications. Like I've heard it
Right.
all.
I bet.
And so so I always like whenever they mention that, the side effect of a medication or they didn't take the medication because they read the side effect, and then I kinda turn it on them. And again, this is how I like get to know my patients. I would know them to know if I can do this or not. I say I did this for everyone. But I was like, "So, what did you have for breakfast, lunch, or dinner yesterday?" They always knew I was gonna ask that because I like to talk about nutrition. And I was like, "Well, how do you think, I was bacon. I always harp on them about bacon. How do you think that bacon, what's that side effect of your bacon that you had, this morning?" And they're like, "Oh gosh, Dr. Amanda, you always trying to make me not have this." And I was like, "But you have to look at it the same way, right?" So because your nutrition the foods that we eat does not necessarily come with the many side effects that the medications like where they're obligated to do like doesn't decrease the fact that it's causing a side effect in your body. So
That's
you
right.
have to look at it that way. So like the foods you're putting in your mouth, anything you put in your mouth that you're doing, again, this is focused on nutrition, that it's going to cause some type of consequence, whether good or bad. So you get to choose, do you want, your food to be your medicine, or do you want me to write a prescription? And I tell them the easiest thing I can do for you is write a prescription and walk out this room, but that's
Yep.
not really going to help you.
Yep.
It takes time to make these changes. And I'm like, and even making, one change will actually make a big difference for you. And you will actually have that positive reinforcement. So I just try to get them to see, what they're doing, what they're putting in their body, how it's affecting them one way or the other, whether it's medications or food, and then actually seeing why they want to be around, and then they're like, "Okay, then I'm willing to make the change." Because I was like, it's not an easy thing, and I, usually tell them about my journey over decades, and I was like, "Every day we have to decide, what we're gonna eat, whether we're gonna move," and it can be kinda draining at times, and, one lady, another doctor described it as like having another full-time job, trying to figure
Yep.
this health thing out at times, and
Yeah.
we don't want them to be overwhelmed, so it's like, one thing you can change, one thing you can exchange out, and usually at that point, they're open to actually making a change. And then knowing that it's not going to be perfect, but we're not expecting it to be perfect. No one's ever perfect with it, even as you go along. But as you move along in your journey, you're going to get better and better and better. And I like to use a football analogy because my husband loves football, football coach. So
Yeah.
shout out to him. So I always tell people, like as you change, like you're moving further and further down the football field. So you may not get a touchdown, but you may get a first down.
I
So
love it.
just think
You're
of it
right.
that way. Like you're moving, and even if you feel like you've fallen off track, you're not going all the way back. You're just
Mhm.
going like a little bit decrease in your movement, but it's not totally for naught. So usually they're open to that.
No, no, that hey, listen, I was listening at you, Doctor Manning. I was just gonna let you just go ahead and preach the rest of the sermon, right? You know what's so interesting about what you do and my observation and meeting you for the first time, and as we're discussing this, right, it's the passion and the connection that you have for what you do that I think is truly a gift from God. Because there are many people that have jobs, professions. There are many doctors that are doctors that went to medical school because and went through all of that to get their license to practice medicine because it was lucrative, or maybe they was inspired by their parents or someone they knew that was a doctor. But your journey to get to this place is totally interesting, and it's also one that allows me to see how God has orchestrated a lot of this for you. And I bring that point up because I want to go back to the examination room. You said something during your overview just a few moments ago about, you know, how you get to know your patients. You get to know them. And in getting to know them, oftentimes you can help to maybe discover a why, a reason, something that motivates them to make the change. The thing that motivated me to make the change was my why. I had to unearth that why through God's help in showing me what that was.
Mhm.
And for me, it was that I knew that I could not live my life and fulfill his plan and purpose for my life in bad health,
Mhm.
with no energy, couldn't think clear,
Yes.
all these pills, all this stuff. And all I was thinking about most of the time was just trying to not pass out.
Mm.
So I couldn't think about anything else. But the why and the reason for being or the reason for doing it is such a great piece that you've added to your consultations with your patients that all the doctors I went through, I've never experienced that.
Mm.
Nobody never asked me anything outside of, what you eating, what you doing, are you exercising, blah, 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 all this, the medical stuff, right? But they never asked me, hey, What is it that you like doing?
Mhm.
Are do you like traveling? Are you going on trips or do are you know, tell me a little bit about yourself because I think based on what you just shared, had that
Okay.
conversation came up earlier with the physician, maybe I could have gotten to where I needed to be a bit quicker because that person would have helped me uncover what was already in me, which that answer to my weight loss and my health issues was already there. It was already in me.
Mhm.
And I'm amazed at the fact that you do this. I think it's absolutely incredible that you do that part or integrate
Yeah.
that into your practice. That's phenomenal.
Yeah. And I like to say, because I always like to, have both sides of the story. I love, doctors, my physician colleagues, and I can tell you that we don't always have time to unveil this for
Yeah,
every
yeah,
single
right,
patient.
right, right,
And
right,
so that's
right.
why I was like, "Oh," so I say that, but it's like over time. It's not like the first time that I meet you or something like that, or it's not every single appointment. So, you I don't like to blame, but it's like sometimes like we gotta be in and out, in and out. What can we
Yep,
do? But
yep.
kinda just to plant that seed, like sometimes it was just that seed of like, okay, what did that food do for your body today? So maybe that was, one appointment. Then the next time, like, what do you want to do different because you're not doing
Mhm.
that? Like, so it was like it's like a buildup of it. So I don't want you to think I'm sitting in one patient.
No, no,
Well,
no, no, no,
actually,
no,
I
no.
should say now that is actually why I got out of like traditional medicine to actually focus purely on lifestyle medicine because lifestyle medicine takes time. Like we don't, it's not a 10-minute office visit that we can do that would help. And that's what I was really loving. And I was like, oh, I can't do this as much as I want to do it in my traditional internal medicine practice out on faith, like, Lord, if this is what you call me to do, I'm going to go and, do this, more full time. And so I really think it make a difference, and that's why, I'm on, shows like this for with you to actually have people like have that conversation with your doc, and it may not be like one long conversation. It may just be like here and there that you get like different seeds, and then actually out here doing the work of like some of the physicians that cannot be in the do that in the exam room. So at least you're hearing this from a physician and like trying to get that understanding to go forward.
No, no, it's so critical. It's a vital part, especially if this has been your physician that you go see and you've been seeing him for the last 10, 15 years, you know, they should know more about you, in my opinion, than just your medical records, right? They should know a bit more about you over the span of 10 or 15 years. But I just thought that was a very, very important part of what I consider to be providing overall wellness to people because it's more than just the physical aspects, is the mental and spiritual aspects that we oftentimes overlook that needs to be tapped into. So, like you said, you can't talk to everybody, you can't tell them about their purpose and talk about purpose all day long in the medical room. I get it. You're right. Now we don't want to do that. But if you've been going to see somebody for the last 10, 15 years, they should at least know what you like doing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
If what your hobbies are, at least one hobby.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I agree. I agree. Yeah, and that sometimes was a whole different conversation, like with like people that come in. Like one of my patients, I can tell you, like we love talking about like his hiking trips or something, and then
Yeah,
before we know it, I'm like, we didn't even talk about your blood pressure yet. Let's.
I know. Oh, that is so awesome, man. So awesome. Let me ask you this, Dr. Amanda. How does faith play a role in what you do?
Yes, and again, decades of just like intervention. So I can say I grew up in the church. My father's actually now a minister, and just having that love for God, like even like growing up as a teenager, I can tell people like I was the only teenager in the adult Bible class, stuff like that. Like I just wanted to know more because again that I was like I can look back over my life now and see how the Lord was like opening doors for me to become a physician. Like I said, no one in my family was in medicine at all, period. Not even like a nurse, not a medical assistant, nothing like that in my immediate family. and then to go on to then go into a school that would then give me a scholarship to go to med school. Like it had to
Wow.
all line up, it wasn't just there. And then to go back home for residency. And so once I was starting to learn more about lifestyle medicine and just like doing things in my practice, faith just started to come out. I originally started practicing in Tennessee, so in the Bible Belt. So just loved it,
Yeah.
everyone there talking about that. And so one day I just heard God say, there's like, okay, now I want you to help my church, my people to be healthier
Mm.
because I'm tired of them, like you said, being tired on these medications, coming just for prayer. Prayer will heal, but the Lord expects you to do something. Faith without works
Come
is
on.
dead.
Come
And
on.
so he was like, okay, so I now need you to show them how they can actually make these changes in their life to actually then go on to do more and more ministry for the kingdom of God.
That's right.
And to actually show that we need to actually support ourselves within the church, because it's like you're in this, like I grew up in church, and I know if you have African American church, I know back in the day, like everybody got a building fund. And I'm like, the building fund started when my grandmother was young. We still in the same building, trying to get this building fund. So I'm sorry, like that just like would irritate me. Like, what are we building? Where is this money gonna come to fruition? So it was like, so we need to actually get our people working out there, building businesses and actually healthy to do so. And then actually then going out and spreading the love of Jesus to others so they can actually build up the kingdom of God. Most people, like, if you just go try to preach to them and then they're hungry or they don't have clothes or something like that, they're like, what are you talking to me about this Jesus? Like, I'm over here hungry. And so we need to actually have that there. And so I built in the faith part because one, we need that for, the church, which is, us, not just the pastors and preachers and the leaders, but then that our people are well and then they understand how God works through their physical health to make them better for the spiritual kingdom. I
That's
also
right.
use the faith as a point to help people in their behavioral changes because behavior is the hardest thing to change with people. Like they're stuck in their ways, like this is what they're going to do. And so when people tell me they believe in God, they have faith in God, they have all these things here, then I pull out scriptures for them to actually meditate on, to actually show them how they can actually make these changes. Like, oh my gosh, I have to have my, chocolate, or I have to have my candy to keep me going, or I have to have, this burger, this steak, whatever that I have to have. And like, no, you don't have to have anything. You need to depend on the Lord to actually help you
That's
through
right.
whatever you're going through, right? And so people start to look at it a little bit different. They're like, I guess, yeah, you're kind of right.
Yeah.
I'm depending on the
Yeah.
Lord in this one aspect, but not depend on this for the health, and not just health and healing. Like the Lord can come and heal you whenever He wants. He can actually do that if He chooses to, but then He also wants you to do some things on a side too. So almost every story in the Bible that actually calls with healing is like the Lord will say, your faith has made you whole, or,
That's right.
go and
That's
do
right.
something. And so if you don't actually have that faith that you're going to be whole, like by what you're doing, then you're not going to be healed. So I just love to pull in that aspect because, again, I grew up in the church. I was tired of seeing my ministers die. And again, looking back on growing up in the church, I decided to become a doctor, and my pastor at the time would start calling me doctor. My last name at that time was Davis. Actually, he was like, "Hey,
Mhm.
Doctor Davis." Like,
Yeah.
and I actually looked back and at his obituary like a few years ago, and realized that he was in his 40s when he died. Like. He was like my
Whoa.
age when he died. And at the time you're a teenager, you think everybody is old. You're just thinking they're older, and he died from diabetes complications. And I'm just like, really? Oh my goodness. And this is after,
Yeah.
decided to do lifestyle medicine and, working like the Lord telling me, I want you to help my people. And then like to look at that and I'm like, and then he was like, see, look at this. This is what I'm talking about. Like, why did he have to die in his 40s from diabetes complications? When it was nutrition, because we went to these churches for the afternoon and they served fried chicken
Yep. Yep.
a lot of
Yep.
times,
Yep.
ham hocks with greens, all these types of things. And so it's like, I want you to tell my people to change their eating
Yeah.
so they can actually live out better.
Gosh, See, I knew you were supposed to be preaching, Doctor Amanda. I knew it. I knew it. I felt it. I felt there was some connection there. There was something there, right? Because you just you're preaching. You're preaching. You're preaching what we need to hear more of in church.
Yes.
Because sometime I believe that God may issue healing to us by helping us to change our diets, change the things that are causing us to have these problems, right? But, and I don't know what the statistic is, but somewhere I read a while back that some of the most unhealthy people, most overweight folks are in the church. Now, you brought up about your pastor. How many people are short circuiting their destinies because of what they are consuming and how they're treating their bodies? And I oftentimes wonder about that and wonder to the extent, can we get more education and more ministry tailored around wellness? Because sometimes people are not well because they may not have the information. Like you talked about some behavior, addressing the behavior piece, right? But sometimes you may not have the information and we're not talking enough about it. And I think if we can talk more about it and we can talk about some of these solutions, then we can help people
Mhm.
where they are to transition out of these things that are, in some cases, perhaps might be taking them out of here prematurely.
Mhm.
See, I know I was on that path. And the thing that happened for me that I never ever thought about, but being, a man of God and loving the Lord, not perfect, but I never thought about this one thing. I tried every diet,
Mhm.
every trick, every fad for decades. Lose a little bit of weight, pick all
Mhm.
the weight back up and then some. Nothing ever worked. Then I just kinda, like, gave up. I was like, "Man, I guess I'm just gonna be reserved to this body and,
Mhm.
I don't know what's gonna happen." But I remember coming home one day and, I was coming up the stairs and I could barely get up the stairs, and I cried out to God for help. I said, "Lord, I can't fulfill your purpose for my life this way. I need your help." And Dr. Amanda, for decades, I never asked him for help.
Mm.
I never thought to ask him
Yeah.
for help regarding my
Mhm. Mhm.
my issues that I was imposing on they were self-inflicted.
Yeah.
All of my all of my all of my issues health-wise, every single one of them was self-inflicted. They were not hereditary. They did not come through my genes. They were just things that I did because of a poor lifestyle.
Mhm.
Period. But when I asked him for help, everything changed. Everything literally changed. And in 1 year, I lost 100 pounds and all of my, like, issues that I went back to my doctor. I was talking to you about that earlier, right? I went back to my because I go every year. So I go
Mhm.
back in, and she didn't know about this. She didn't know I was on this journey. So I go back into the office. Everybody from the receptionist, the front desk folks were like they was like they looked at my, picture on the thing, and then they like, "Yo, what's up with you, bro? What you do?" So everybody was tripping when I got in the office because of the weight loss, and when my doctor saw me, my doctor almost fainted, like,
Mm.
"Whoa," she said, "What happened? What'd you do?" And then this is what she threw in there too, Doctor Amanda, and I laughed, I chuckled. She was like, "You finally listened at some of my advice?" I'm like,
Yes, we wanna take all the credit.
yeah, I'm like, "Doc, I appreciate that advice, but I ain't listened to that advice for 20 some years." So I it was the Lord. It
Yeah.
was him. It was him. Your advice was on point. It was right. I ain't saying that it wasn't right. I just didn't have the capacity to listen. I didn't
Yes,
have it,
yes. She
and
planted
I
the
didn't have
seed,
the
but the Lord
capacity to
caused the
execute.
increase.
Yeah, that's it. But the interesting thing is the faith integration and the belief that God, who created these bodies of ours, knows how they're supposed to function, but we don't lean on him to help us before we have a problem or even after we have the problem. We ask God, well, heal me of diabetes. And he may just tell you, you got to stop eating that fried chicken.
Mhm.
You got to give,
That's it.
get more plant-based stuff into your diet, right? But I think that, and I wanted to ask your opinion about that aspect of health as it pertains to believers in the church. Could we do better in helping to educate and minister more in that area to help some of the folks that are struggling?
Oh, yes, it is a whole lot that can be done. Like I said, there's a lot of scriptures in the Bible that talks about health, and that just in general, because like you said, you never thought to ask him for help, but there's a place that
Yeah,
talks about he delights in every detail of your life.
that's
And
right.
that one
That's
was a
right.
big one for me. I'm like, so every detail of your life. So it's not just the spiritual aspect. Like he wouldn't have made your human body if he didn't think it was important, right? So, yes, we have a lot to do within the church. There's certain things that we feel like we do not talk about. One is like physical health, and then other is like finances. That's why I like love putting them together. Like the two go hand in hand. We need physical health and we need finances to build the kingdom of God. And if we actually do this, I know there's a lot of things going on in the lifestyle medicine um realm of trying to get this message to more churches. It's a lot of resistance. Like people don't want to change. They like they fried chicken.
Yeah.
And so even when you go and tell them, they're like, "Oh, that's good. That's good to hear, Dr. Amanda, but I don't want to stop eating that." So, try to
Right, right.
interweave those scriptures for us to actually show, like, how are you using your temple that the Lord gave you? Are you actually using it as your form of worship? Like, because if we do not take care of our physical bodies, that's like telling the Lord we're not going to actually care for His creation, just like we think about other part of the earth. So it's a lot of work to do in that area, and we just have to have people that are willing and open to listen. And again, it goes back to not just going in there lecturing. Like I love being a part of the church I'm currently in. There is a physician that's over the compassion ministry, and he is working like the food as medicine. Like so we have a food market going in there, and I've actually done like a little mini talk with in the food market. So people are going there actually getting healthy food and actually seeing how they're eating these healthy foods, how it relates to actual their body, and then in turn putting that in to seeing like the church is actually getting their body healthier, not just for their own means, but then so then you can actually hear about the love of God. Because again, I talk about again, nobody wants to hear about, how good Jesus is, how good God is when they're hungry,
Yeah.
you know.
Right,
So
right,
even feeding the 5,000, he fed them first, and then they talked about,
right.
what he wanted to talk
Come on.
about.
Come
So
on. Come on.
so
You're
we
right.
we have to look at it, and we have to like meet the people where they are. And again, we just have to like go and plant those seeds. I'm just a person I'm just thanking God that I'm out here planting the seeds, and I may not see it come to full fruition, like I say, but then somebody will come and water it, and then the Lord will cause the increase at a time. But we have to get out there and just helping them one church at a time. So if you are a
You're
church that's
right.
in need, please share
You're
this
right.
this with their if you're a
Yeah,
congregation,
yeah.
they can
No,
come and listen to this.
trust me, I am, and we're trying to do some work in that regards on the ground and through platforms like this, and with having really, really great people like yourself to come on to give us the perspective that oftentimes is missed because you've been on both sides of the fence. I mean, you practice internal medicine and then now you're talking lifestyle medicine. So you're well rounded in that regards. And the great thing is that you're a person of faith. I mean, you realize how important, God is in this entire process. And you're right. There's a lot of work to be done, but thank God for people like you. You're out there in the trenches. You're making a difference. And I knew this was going to happen, Dr. Amanda, when I first connected with you. I'm like, "Man, there's no way you're gonna get through all of your questions with her within an hour." So I'm just telling you now, or at least asking you, I'm gonna need to have you to come back for part 2 because I haven't even gotten to the 6 pillars yet. I wanted us to go into that. So listen, well to leave family. Let me say this to you right now. Dr. Amanda hopefully will come back and she's going to talk in depth about these 6 pillars. And you obviously, she's going to leave some information, how you guys can reach her to get additional information on some of these programs. But with that being said, tell us about in the last few remaining minutes here, Dr. Amanda, how are you reaching people with this message? And do you have a centralized practice there in California? Or are you just kind of doing this like from a national standpoint?
So I'm now 100% virtual. So that's why I'm coming on these different platforms here so people can hear about it. As the medicine part of it, I'm licensed in 10 states because to actually practice medicine in a state, you have to have that license in that state. So you can look at my website for the 10 states. But then I also do like lifestyle coaching or speaking, and that can be, worldwide where I wouldn't necessarily dive deep into the medical part, but just the lifestyle changes in itself, behavioral, the spiritual aspect. I can do that in any state or country in the world.
Okay. Okay. All right. Fantastic. And what's the ideal client for you when it comes to coaching them up in the lifestyle medicine side?
So it is a woman just like me of color that either is overweight or has a family history of obesity, high blood pressure, or diabetes, that either wants to reverse these things that's already in their body or prevent them. So I've done both. I kind of reverse because I believe I had pre-diabetes and then now continue to maintain that as I go on through life. Anyone that's in
Okay.
that aspect, then that's usually who I help.
All right. Fantastic. Can you share with us maybe a testimony of someone that you work with that were overweight or dealing with some health challenges and you were able to see them come out on the other side of
Yeah.
that in a positive manner?
So I like to talk about a lady that had high blood pressure, and her doc was just like, "Oh goodness." And so finally, she just put her on a medicine and said, "Okay, here we go." And so I actually I use this as a write up because you have to do a write up for your board certification for lifestyle medicine. And we went through the different 6 pillars for her. She's always struggled with her weight, and we had her change a few things with nutrition. She did a few of my like 5-day cleanses and like got better and better with that. She already was an exerciser, but then we really honed in on the stress piece. So I'm glad you talked about us talking about later the 6 pillars. Because like I said, I harp on nutrition, but sometimes it's something else. So for her, it was stress. Um, was dealing with like teenagers and then started to do a lot of extra snacking, really stressed out especially in the evening. I'm like, well, what are you doing? What's going on? What else can we do besides actually having you sit there stress eating and not actually taking it? So she's a woman of faith. We talked about, scripture. We talked about what else she can do besides stress eating, whether it's meditation, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's drinking water and herbal tea or something like that in the evening. And so again, this was over time, probably like 3, 6 months or so. And then I remember her letting me know, because this is like virtual, that she went back to see her doctor, and she was like, the medical assistant took her blood pressure and it was good. And the doctor didn't believe that it was good because it was always high when she went to the office.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm gonna recheck this because I don't believe it's good. And she was like, oh my gosh, it's actually normal today. What have you been doing? And so she just told about, what we were doing, and they're like, "Oh, wow, well, keep it up because that's working for you." So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm just proud of her, and actually, for me to actually see the different pillars of lifestyle medicine actually work. And I always like to say this, that people that it may not happen immediately because we're going to be going through steps to kind of see. We never know which one is going to actually trigger for you. Again, I always start with nutrition because that's usually when most people can make a big difference. And it probably was that plus then the stress changing that for her.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
actually impacted her blood pressure in the long run. So
Wow.
don't give up. We can
Yeah.
help in so many different ways.
Oh,
So
that's
yeah, I just
awesome.
hope it inspires someone to keep going, even if you're in a journey, even if you're not working with me, to just keep going because it is going to make a difference for you overall.
Oh, that's fantastic. That is so encouraging. Let me ask you this as we get ready to wrap up. Tell our audience, excuse me, the best way that they can get in contact with you if they got questions or would look for help in any kind of capacity.
So the best way to reach me is through my website at www.dramandamd.com. You can reach out, book an appointment, a consult, or see my different social media. I have YouTube channel where I talk about certain things. You can, get information from there. So everything you start at my website and then branch off from there.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. And Dr. Amanda, I can't leave without asking you to do me a favor. I
Okay.
do need you, I would like for you, if you could, to drop some words of wisdom, some parting gifts to our audience as we get ready to close out the show today.
My goodness, when people ask me that, I'm like, "Ooh, which one do I use?" Because my favorite that changed my life and the way I looked at lifestyle was you cannot out exercise a bad diet. And I say that because my initial reaction to my own health was to exercise, but I didn't change what I was eating. And like I said, I think that's why I harp so much on nutrition to actually see that. So to know that what you actually put in your body is actually making the biggest difference in your life, that is going to make a big difference if you actually change what you're actually inputting to get that. So if I had to use
That's
one
right.
thing, I always end with
That's right.
that. And if I had to use
Yeah.
a scripture, it's always that your body is a temple, you should treat it as such. So just think of if you actually had a temple like, oh gosh, I always forget that temple, the Taj Mahal. If you have something like that miraculous thing there, how would you treat that? Like, you want people to treat something that's that valuable. Your body is more valuable than that. So how are you going to treat
That's
that?
right.
So you cannot exercise a bad diet, and your body is a temple, so treat it as such.
Love it. Absolutely love it. So we couldn't get everything in, and we got a plan for part two. But thank you so much, Dr. Amanda, for coming
Thank
in
you.
and taking time out of your busy schedule to not only share what I consider to be very valuable information, but you also left us inspired today. So we can walk away with information and inspiration. And I certainly appreciate you bringing that to us today and continue to do the great work that you're doing. And just like I said, thanks again for taking time to come visit us over here at Well to Lead. I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed talking to you.
Well, guys, that's all we have for you today. We certainly appreciate you all joining us and taking time out of your busy schedules. And until next week, you guys have a good rest of the day. Take care and bye bye.